what's a content ecosystem and how can marketers design one that will help drive new business, Dan?
Good question. A content ecosystem, the way I like to think about it is it's all about producing content in the right places at the right time to kind of hold the hand of your ideal customer and give them all the information they need to know that you're the best solution to their problem.
I think this is an absolute secret ingredient for businesses. I think in this episode, people are going to have more light bulb moments of like, oh my God, that's what's been happening than any other.
I realise this is probably the thing we mention most across most episodes that we've never actually like done a deep dive into.
Yeah.
So I'm excited for us to actually talk a bit about this today.
Yeah, I think it's the secret ingredient. I think you've got businesses that are thriving and businesses that aren't. And you've got people that are like, oh, yeah, we tried that marketing, didn't work. And they don't know why it hasn't worked. And they see other businesses that are like, well, they ran a campaign on social media, or like they ran a PPC campaign and they've got these amazing returns. On the outside, we look like similar businesses. Why did we try that and invest £5,000, £10,000 or £100,000 into this and not get anything back? And I think we're going to tell you why.
Yeah. And I think one of the biggest problems with marketers and marketing right now is everyone's focused on tactics. And like we see this with our podcast episodes. We do a lot of tactic-based podcast episodes because that's what you want to hear. Like, here's how you use LinkedIn ads to drive revenue, or here's how you grow an audience on social. But what we're going to talk about today is broader strategy that brings all of these tactics together to actually drive real return on investment. And you really need all of this to work together to get those kind of results.
I think that's the difference. A lot of people are doing some really good stuff and implementing some really good tactics on trying to get more revenue and increase customers and all that kind of stuff. But it's kind of the difference between short-term bursts of like good energy. Good energy, it'll sound like, I don't mean like Yoda. Bursts of energy, short-term bursts of like good marketing stuff.
Yeah.
That kind of like almost like a heart rate graph. Like, oh, I did a good thing, and then it goes back down. Oh, I did a good thing. Whereas this brings everything together and is more of a kind of, you build on it over time slowly, and you end up with this content ecosystem that means any activity you do is going to convert better and help you achieve your goals more. I think that's the massive difference. And if you can get it right and get to that point where you're building a content ecosystem and you're building it rather than doing lots of random things and one-off things, I think that can be where hopefully a lot of businesses listen to this can learn.
How important do you think this is? I'm guessing you think it's quite important.
Yeah. I think this is probably the most important thing that we haven't spoken about on a podcast about, if you know what I mean. Like, I think that's why I think this is so important. So I just keep saying important because it's so important. But why I think a lot of people will learn from this. I think people are going to go, oh, that's why that didn't work. That's why that campaign we did last year didn't work. Oh, that's why this didn't work. That's why my boss was saying like, no, we're not doing it because it doesn't work. Yeah, I think lots of answers.
And so to try and dive into this a bit deeper, so on content ecosystem, the way you need to think about this is really focusing on your customer journey. So what your customer journey is the journey a potential customer goes on from not knowing who you are to having a problem that you could solve, to discovering that you could be an option to help them solve that problem, to then thinking, oh, actually, this is probably a company I'd like to work with to help solve this problem, to then becoming a customer. And there's a lot of steps along that journey that take someone from not knowing who you are to becoming a customer. And the way I like to think about the content ecosystem is thinking about that journey and thinking of all the different places that person goes to look for information to help guide their decision making. You need to show up in those places with the right information to really guide them to realize that you are that solution or the best solution.
Yeah, and I think it's more important the bigger the buying decision is. So these short bursts of activity I mentioned before, if you're selling a product for £3, sometimes that one-off ad you put in front of someone will literally do the whole job and get someone to buy it. But the higher value the thing is you're trying to sell, whether it's a service within business that costs thousands or a higher end product that people are paying, £50, £100, £1,000, that's where this gets even more important, because they're not, well, very, very rarely are they going to see one ad and think, actually, I'm going to go with this company for this thing that's going to cost me £12,000 because this ad looks good. They're going to look at that ad and then they're going to look in lots of other places, or they're going to see an ad and think, well, I've seen these other things over the last 12 months to do with this business or these products, and that's meant that now I'm ready to make the decision and say, yeah, I'm going to work with them, or yes, I'm going to make this purchase.
And that's where the content ecosystem comes into play to do exactly that.
Yeah.
So I want to try and make this better and more value adding. Can I go through a specific example of how we're using the content ecosystem?
Oh, I've got a specific example as well.
Okay.
Yes, we can be very specific.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I want to share with you, open the bonnet and share with you our complete content ecosystem to give you an idea of what we're doing and what's working for us as a company. So we actually break down the content ecosystem. Although there's lots of different steps in the customer journey, we break it down into 3 core parts, which we've spoken a lot about before, which is a traditional marketing funnel. So it's about building awareness, building trust, and driving action. And we segment the types of content we're creating in the different places into those 3 different stages. So can I give you some examples of the kind of things we're doing at the awareness stage give context?
Hit me with the awareness.
And I know we've said content ecosystem, but actually some of this is like in-person content and some of it is digital content. So let me give you some examples. Yeah. So actually pre-COVID, one of the biggest parts of our awareness stage of our customer journey ecosystem was speaking at events. When COVID happened, that kind of stopped and we're now picking it up again. But speaking at events was a way that we used to reach new audiences, speaking at marketing events and providing educational content to demonstrate that we know what we're talking about. That was one of the first kind of stages of the funnel.
Literally you standing on a stage, 500 people in the room, talking about stuff, and they go, this guy knows what he's talking about, and there's a business.
And it's not the kind of speak on the stage that you may have seen where there's like someone trying to sell you something. Like, hey everyone, you should buy my course on this thing. Our whole strategy was focused around doing the complete opposite of that and providing our best insights on the stage. The things that we've learned for running campaigns with some of the biggest brands in the world, all of those lessons we share in educational talks. Another example, which is a big thing we do, is creating consistent educational and entertaining content across different social media platforms, from LinkedIn to YouTube to TikTok. That's been a big part of us reaching new audiences, and probably one of the most effective things we've done in terms of the awareness stage now consistently is creating that content. Another thing which is quite meta is this podcast. So I'd say this podcast actually falls into, it's kind of in the grey area between the awareness and the consideration stage or the trust building stage, because this helps us reach new audiences. People find us on podcasting platforms, but at the same time, we design this podcast strategically to, 1, give you lots of great educational information to make you want to listen, but 2, we do also talk about campaigns we're running and results we've achieved for clients, so that a percentage of you listening may be a marketer from a brand that is looking for an agency to work with, and you'll hear the example. And this has literally happened. This happens on a regular basis. Marketers listen to this podcast, learn something, but hear the results we've achieved and then get in touch with us and say, oh, we want those results.
What's good is as well, you can, as you move forward with this approach, you can find efficiencies in your content ecosystem. So I would say if you're listening to the long form podcast, we're in your ears right now, that's more the consideration stage. We're actually talking about stuff, letting you know that we know what we're talking about if you are one of those people. But the short form clips that we put on social media, that is probably, I would say, more awareness. A lot more people discover the podcast from that. They see those short clips and then eventually they're kind of like, oh, I might actually listen to that full episode.
You're exactly right. And that's just made me think, actually, platforms like YouTube Shorts and TikToks, which are literally built for discovery, you don't have to have a huge audience and you can reach lots of people, are perfect for us utilizing the short form content to reach those new audiences. So yeah, that's a really great point, Lloyd.
Thank you.
Another example, I don't know if you remember this, Lloyd, another type of content we create in the awareness stage. When we first started, I used to write articles for publications like Social Media Examiner and Content Marketing Institute. We don't do this anymore because we've kind of evolved, but that actually, again, in the awareness and consideration stage, it built awareness because people would read these articles we wrote, and it would also build trust because it demonstrates that we know what we're talking about.
Yeah, I think, and even it built trust with people that didn't read those articles. So when we'd be in talks with a business about potentially working with them, or they're just looking at our socials, they can see that we're writing for leading publications in the industry that we work in. And straight away, that even without reading the articles, it's like, well, if they don't know what they're talking about, they wouldn't be allowed to write in those publications. Yeah. So yeah, people don't even have to read those for it to be a benefit and build that trust.
I also think something quite new, which we've done in this awareness stage, which has worked incredibly well recently, which you kind of did, was sending out a press release. So we've never properly sent out a press release until recently.
Yeah, we've. I don't think we've ever done any PR. For our own business, we've never done any PR.
And we recently, we've been talking a lot more about our positive impact plan, and we've created a page on our website, and we wanted to kind of get that out there to the world and hopefully inspire other small businesses to start focusing on their impact on the planet and their people and that kind of thing. So you wrote a really detailed press release, and we actually got on TV and got on a local newspaper, which is...
That's the point with this content ecosystem, though, I think. So our business has been going since 2016. Our first PR activity was literally last week, but we've just been building this content ecosystem over the years. We started with the things that we're brilliant at, and we've done more and more of that, been building it. And you can just constantly, when you've kind of mastered one thing and you've got a process, okay, now we've got this great stuff going out on social, we've got our email newsletter, we've got all this happening, and now we're experimenting with another thing to bolt onto that, another way to get people's attention and then take them through this journey.
Also, I do just want to say, this may sound overwhelming what we're talking about, because I'm only a third of the way in to all the different things we're doing, and there's a lot there. But just to kind of reassure you, when we started, when it was just Lloyd and I in our parents' spare room, or back room, whatever you want to call it, and we didn't have a lot of people to working for us, we were probably doing 2 or 3 of these things.
Yeah.
And then, like you said, Lloyd, over time, once you get good and you nail a certain platform, this evolves over time and you build on it. So don't get scared off that we're saying all these different things you should be doing. You can start with 1 or 2 of these and then build out from there.
That's the whole thing. It's the thing about building this content ecosystem over time. So you'll just, over time, adding more bits onto it, more things that are going to persuade people to work with you as they see them. So if today you have nothing going on and you add one thing on, great. Or if you're a big brand and you think, well, we've got quite a good content ecosystem, but there's this gap here, let's start activity there and see how we can build onto it. But it's much better to have this long-term view than just doing these short-term things of like, okay, now I'm just going to do a pay-per-click campaign on Google. Right, I'll put £1,000 into that. Oh, didn't do anything. Okay, I'll stop that. On to the next thing. The long-term thinking of maybe you do that pay-per-click campaign at a much lower level for awareness over time, and then that gives you time and budget to work on something in the consideration stage, and you have a great video on your website that they're then going to see when they click on that link.
And I'd say, as a rule of thumb, try and have at least 1 or 2 activities going on in each of these 3 stages of the customer journey, rather than just focusing on awareness or just focusing on building trust or just focusing on driving action. Try and spread what you're doing out across all of those sort of different areas.
I feel like most businesses are either good at the awareness stage or the stages further down the funnel. So I feel like most businesses have that kind of pain point of, oh, we've got this great stuff to show people once they get in touch with us, and our conversion rate's really high, but we just don't get the eyes on our business and we don't get the people on our website. Or it's the other way, and people are like really good on social, or they're really good with video content, or have a big podcast that gets loads of eyes on. They're like, I've got this attention from the people I want it from, but no one's converting. And I think it's fitting all this together that fills those gaps that will make a massive difference.
And that segues nicely on to the next stage, which is the building trust stage. So like Lloyd said, it's really important to have the awareness, but you also need to be doing the right things to build trust. So to try and give some examples of the things we're doing that really help us. So this is really the stage where you want to be demonstrating that you deliver on your promises. You want to be providing credibility and building trust with your audience. So one of the best ways we do this is through the case studies on our website. So this is real life examples of us working with really credible brands, demonstrating the results we've achieved. And then those case studies on the website, we also repurpose into videos on social media, into image posts for Insta and that kind of thing. And one of our most effective ones, Lloyd has actually done a run through of some of our campaigns, you know, like the ones you've done where you're on video talking through, this is how we did this, and,
Yes.
Which have worked really well. But any kind of case studies demonstrating that you deliver on your promises is a really great.
And so this case study stuff, by the way, some people just do that and they try and use that for awareness. The point is, the first point of contact with people, they probably don't care about this stuff Dan's talking about. And that's why it's really important that you have the awareness stuff. And then that drives people to look at this trust building stuff when they're ready and when they're actually thinking about working with you or they're interested in what you do. And so it's really important that it's in the right place in the kind of customer journey.
Yeah. Another one which is really important, we're actually doing a whole podcast episode which is around relationship building, which will be next week, but building strategic partnerships with the right people. So over the years, we've realized how vital and how important it is to have people who are on your team recommending you. So to give you some examples, over the years, we've built really strong relationships with other marketing agency owners who maybe focus on a different area of marketing like SEO or that kind of thing, who actually actively recommend us. One of our longest standing clients who has spent a significant amount of money with us came recommended 5 years ago from another agency who we'd built a relationship with. So it just goes to show how powerful actually building these and it really needs to be, the relationship needs to go both ways. So you don't just need to think of this like, what can I take from these relationships? You know, who can I build a relationship that's going to send me loads of work? You need to be thinking, how can that be mutually beneficial and
genuinely as
well?
Yeah.
Like
we've been offered, I've lost count of how many agency partnership things we've been offered where it's like, okay, so we'll have an agreement and we give you 10% of like kickback referral fee if you do this and stuff. And we could have made more money by referring to these agencies that were offering to pay us for the referrals and stuff. But I'm really happy with our long-term mindset. We've always kind of said, no, we will do that, have those relationships with the people that we think are genuinely really good and not the people that might make us some money in the short term. And that's really paid off in the long term the other way.
Yeah. And it's also not just other agency owners. Like there's other people in the business and marketing space where, and I'm trying to think like, how do we form these relationships? So going to things like events, like in person is a great way to really form strong relationships. I think we've really made an effort to make sure we're regularly going to different types of events and meeting the right kinds of people to ensure we're doing that. Another thing is forming strategic partnerships with other like credible brands. So for example, Adobe Express obviously sponsor this podcast. And you know, it's great for us. We've been using Adobe products for years and we're kind of talking about it anyway, but to have them support us is a kind of another thing that's boosting our credibility. So really think about what brands are there in your industry that you could potentially partner with. You know, think about what are the tools or the brands that you actually use every day. Why not make the effort to reach out to them and see if they'd be open to collaborating or having some kind of partnership so that you could promote them because you're already using the products like we were with Adobe products and they can help promote you as well.
Nice.
Yeah. Other things like we said already, this podcast is a really good trust building piece of content. I think longer form content, like you mentioned, Lloyd, gives you the opportunity to go into more detail to help provide more context and examples to help build that trust further. Like if it's long form YouTube videos, like educational YouTube videos or a podcast or long form live content, this rather than like short form TikTok videos or shorts that like grab attention, the longer form content helps build trust.
Definitely.
Don't know what you think, Lloyd.
Yeah, I think that long form content, just like this podcast, it's the deeper relationship. And like we're saying, if you're trying to convince someone to part with a larger amount of money, if it's a bigger financial commitment or a bigger purchasing decision, it's going to take more than someone just seeing a TikTok of you and thinking, oh yeah, that guy knows what he's talking about. Or, oh, I saw that thing with the woman talking about this tip in marketing. Oh, okay, right, I'm going to spend 100 grand with them for my marketing. It's the long form stuff that really helps that deeper relationship and helps people with those bigger purchasing decisions.
This just made me think, like, at this stage, you do actually have to make an effort to make this work well. So let me just give you an example that I mentioned to you earlier, Lloyd, as to how making the effort is actually worthwhile. So last week I went to Adobe Max in LA, which is kind of Adobe's flagship event that they do, and I met lots of other sort of ambassadors for Adobe there, and got to hang out with them. And I spent a lot of time kind of inverted commas networking and chatting and building relationships. It sounds wanky, but I guess like you call it networking. It was just spending lots of time having chats with different people. And one of the people I met actually on Sunday, we got to know each other. She started listening to our podcast and shared it on Sunday, and we had an extra 250 downloads of our podcast on Sunday. So that all me flying to LA, and that hasn't instantly suddenly generated business for us, but even one of those 250 people who listened to one episode on Sunday could continue to listen to this podcast for the next year, could sign up to our Friday Club newsletter, could see our content on LinkedIn, and then could move jobs and work for a brand that's like a massive household name brand and get in touch with us and become a customer. And this isn't just made up. This has actually happened with other customers.
That's what I was going to say. You saying could there. Obviously, that's like that could happen. But the reason we talk about it with such confidence is because it has happened so many times. Exactly what Dan said has happened. And I've got, I guess after you go through the next stage, Dan, I've got a specific example from a lead next week, and I can tell you exactly those steps, which will make it really come to life, I think. Okay.
Just to quickly finish off with the examples of the drive action, and then we'll do that then. So just some brief examples of what we do to then, once we've built awareness and trust in that content ecosystem, that's not good enough. We actually need to nudge people to get in touch and to become a lead or become a customer. So there's things like optimizing our website to ensuring that we've got clear calls to action. If you're an e-commerce website, things like optimizing your product pages and thinking about what are all the questions someone needs answering before buying that product. And one of the best examples is like an Amazon product page. If you look at all the information they provide, look at that as inspiration. Other things like running paid LinkedIn ads, Google ads. This is where you can target people who have been on your website, who have shown a level of interest that you can then say, speak to one of our sales team or buy the product on our website, that kind of thing. Also for us as a service-based business, utilizing really amazing software like HubSpot, which is a sales and CRM software you can use to track all of your contacts and leads and drive them along the sales funnel, which is really effective. And another thing that's been super effective for us is the LinkedIn video outreach strategy that we use, that we've done a previous episode on this, where we, on a weekly basis, I send outreach videos to people who are in our target market who have shown an interest in working with us. And that really helps drive leads and sales calls that turn into new business. So there's some examples of our content ecosystem. I'd really be interested, Lloyd, to hear your example of how it actually works.
Yes. So we've said about this content ecosystem, and we're saying about how important it is, and you need all these stages, and it's going to be really worthwhile. But I think actually seeing business come in because of this content will hopefully make this real for people. So this is an example of opportunity that's worth around £50,000 for us that came in last week. So started out, a colleague of this person suggested talking to us, and actually the person that got in touch was reluctant because they have marketers that they've worked with previously and really wanted to work with them. But she quite honestly said, I thought I better just look at what you guys do, because I'll just have to speak to you for this, because I've been told by my colleague to say, oh yeah, I've asked them too. So really reluctant at this stage. Googled us, found our website, watched our video on our sustainability page, and realised that we align with her values and her business's values. So that's first thing.
So she's starting to be maybe slightly less reluctant.
Yeah, but she's found us on Google. She's watched a video about sustainability. Still a video that's actually not really to do with what we deliver for our clients. She doesn't know about the work we do yet, but we align with her values. Then she clicked a link out to Instagram and saw some podcast clips of us talking about various things, and she liked it. She then listened to 3 episodes of the podcast, and 2 that actually weren't even about business. So one of them was our episode we did about sobriety and other things. And she kind of said, oh, you guys just get it. And she really enjoyed the podcast. Then she decided she had to work with us basically, and went to our Contact Us page, watched the video on our Contact Us page, and sent us a message. And then we've been speaking to her last week. So all of those different things. So just to be clear on this, we've been building this content ecosystem for years, and if any one of these parts wasn't there, this opportunity may not have come in. So the video on our sustainability page was created 6 months ago to build that content ecosystem up. The sustainability focus we've been working on that for 4 years. We created the sustainability page 2 weeks ago. Our Instagram strategy and the content around it has been building for the last couple of years to get to the point where it is now. And our podcast, we've been improving that over the last 2 years and working on it. So, and the Contact Us video, I think we created
quite a while ago,
3 or 4 years ago. So just wanted to show you that if you do just keep building your content ecosystem, now most of those things that convince this person to want to work with us, it's kind of in the past, we've forgotten that we put effort into doing it, but we've just been building it over time, and having that long-term approach and building the content ecosystem, you can see there, like I said, that's worth £50,000.
Yeah.
Well, roughly.
Yeah. And then there's just so many, you've made me think of other examples. There's so many examples of how this works. Just a quick example from me following that same thing. So one of the first household name brands that we worked with, the decision maker in that brand saw me speak at an event years ago, didn't say anything to us, didn't reach out to us, followed me on Twitter. I think met Lloyd at a networking event like a year later, but didn't mention it that he was interested in working with us. Followed our content on LinkedIn. And I think it was like 3 years from the point of seeing me speak at an event, meeting Lloyd at a networking event, from there to actually getting in touch and doing a project with us. It took that long and those different touch points to eventually become a customer. And it just shows you the power of and the importance of doing these different, producing content in these different areas and formats to help guide them through that journey.
Because each of these videos or sort of website pages we created or content, they were all kind of, each of them is a small project. A few people or a couple of people worked on like for a week or a couple of days, and then that's kind of done. Okay, on to the next thing. But they all build to the point where you can get bigger and bigger opportunities because you're reaching people in more and more places with the right messaging. And I think if you're listening to this and you're either employed by a business or brand and you kind of want to progress within that role and you want to get promoted and stuff, have that kind of, right, over the next 2 years, what do I need to build? What are we missing in this customer journey to build this content ecosystem out? Because I know if I work hard and make this stuff happen over the next couple of years, we're going to fill those gaps and our sales are going to go up. Everything's going to go up basically because we're hitting people in the right place with the right messaging. Whereas at the moment, there could be one missing piece. So say, for example, like I said, our sustainability page only went live 2 weeks ago, even though we've been working on our positive impact plan and our carbon offsetting and reducing carbon emissions for years. If that wasn't there on the website last week, I'm not sure this person would have got in touch just because that was the first thing she went for and was like, oh, wow, we're really aligned here. If that wasn't there, something we did 2 weeks ago that we took action on to build our content ecosystem, we would have lost a £50,000 opportunity. Yeah. So you need to fill those gaps over time and you'll make sure you're not losing out on those opportunities.
And I think it would be good to sort of end the podcast on some actionable steps and actionable things that, because I think we've spoken a lot about examples and how it can work in the context. Shall we talk through, if someone's listening thinking, right, I want a bloody content ecosystem that's going to be well good.
Yeah.
What shall I do?
Yeah.
Shall we talk through some of those steps?
Yeah. Okay. Do you want to start or shall I start then?
You can start.
Okay. I've got a step.
Okay.
Well, I suppose it's more of an overarching thought before we get into the steps, but having the long-term mindset rather than short-term straight away. I spoke about either working with these short-term bursts of energy and marketing, then giving up on that, trying something else, or just building this content ecosystem over time and improving over time. I think before you start anything, that's a really good mindset to have. Think of yourself in a year's time or your business in 2 years' time and what you need, and just think, okay, well, this month I'm going to work on filling that gap. Rather than trying to get sales quickly this month by doing something, let's work on that part. And I know that's going to be there for the next few years and I can build on that.
It's the strategy, not just tactics piece that we spoke about at the start.
Exactly.
Focus on that broader strategy that brings all the tactics together.
Yeah.
Cool. So I'd say from my thoughts, once you've got that mindset, there's a few kind of key things that you need to focus on. One, mapping out your customer journey. Literally get a pen and paper and think about what's the journey your customers go on from not knowing who you are to becoming a customer. Do they search on Google to find the solution to the problem? Or do they look for recommendations from their network? Or do they post on social media? Think about what that customer journey looks like. And once you understand...
I was going to say, can I just add to that point, and then this is my part of the done, Dan. I think in addition to mapping out the customer journey, I think you should be mapping out what you want to communicate to the world. So throughout this whole content ecosystem, you know that, okay, this is what we need people to understand about us. And you can look at that whole funnel and think, okay, what are we communicating there? Are we communicating that... for us, an example would be we communicate we're the most creative agency. We communicate that we focus on having a positive impact on our people, our customers, and the planet. That we're fun, we're knowledgeable, and we work with some of the biggest brands in the world. You hearing that might be like, oh yeah, you do mention that stuff, and it's like, oh
that's
yeah,
strategic.
I've seen that. So that's not by chance. We focus on those things, and with you, it could be. We're the only place that you can get this qualification. That's something really important people have to know. Or we've been going for 60 years. So it's that credibility point. Or our CEO is the most knowledgeable person about these gas cylinders in the world. Whatever those things are, it doesn't have to be similar to ours. It's whatever those things are, so that you know the customer journey, you know what you need to fit in to those points. Yeah. And then you can go on to the rest of Dan's steps that he'll go into.
So mindset, like having the right long-term mindset, focusing on what you want to communicate to the outside world, mapping out your customer journey of like the stages someone goes through to not knowing you to becoming a customer. Then the next stage after that would be writing down the platforms and channels that people use to find the information they need at each of those stages of the customer journey. So like I mentioned, if the first stage of their customer journey is looking on Google, you know that like using Google, like SEO optimizing your website is important to be found at that stage. So write down the platforms and places people go for each of those stages. The next one would be to categorize each stage of that journey, what types of content you need to be creating at each of those stages. So is it awareness types of content, or is it trust building content, or is it content that needs to drive action? Because to make this effective, you don't just need to understand the customer journey and be creating the content in the right places. That content needs to fulfill the need the customer is looking for in each of those stages. So if they're looking to build trust, you should be creating case studies and showing evidence that you can deliver on your promises and that kind of thing. And then actually start to brainstorm like ideas and things that you can create at each of those stages to fulfill the needs of that customer. So yeah, there's just some steps that you can follow.
Nice.
Yeah.
I will follow those steps, Dan. I'll continue to follow them.
Yeah. So I guess, is there anything else you want to mention about the content ecosystem or?
No, I think if you have wondered, why is this marketing stuff not working for my business, but it is for others, this could be the missing link. It could be that social media campaign was really good at getting awareness, but once they get to your website, there's not the right content to take them through that customer journey. Or it could be you've got amazing case studies and you write amazing blogs to build trust, but you're not doing the right things at the awareness stage to build this content ecosystem throughout the whole customer journey. So you're missing out on the eyeballs you need to make it success. If any of these places along the journey and in this content ecosystem have gaps, you could be missing out on loads, basically.
Something that could actually be quite good, just thinking about it, would be to do some kind of audit, or like speak to potential customers, or speak to your target market and make them go through that kind of process and ask them questions about, you actually make them go on your website and say to them, if you're considering working with us, what things would or wouldn't make you want to work with us?
Well, you can start by doing that yourself as well. It won't be as effective, but that's something you can do really easily. Look at this and be like, well, how would anyone actually know about us in the first place? And you might be like, oh, this, and this. Or you might be like, God, it'd be very hard to find out anything about us.
We've got a lot of work to do.
Yeah. And then the next stage would be, okay, if I knew what we did, where are we building trust? Like, does our website do its job? Are we active on social media? Are we targeting people? Are we doing any other kind of work to get in front of them once they know about what we are? And either it'll be, oh yeah, we are doing a lot of that, or we literally don't do anything there. So no wonder we've got this attention, but people aren't kind of getting through to actually becoming a customer or becoming a lead.
Yeah.
I think as a first thing, that would be a great thing to do today.
So go and make your content ecosystem, guys.
Yes.
And then...
Do we make up the phrase content ecosystem?
I think you said it in one episode, but I don't know if...
Trademark.
Yeah.
Or, TM? Content ecosystem TM, Lloyd Knowlton.
And then we'll
see you in your ears next week.